Right, I think we'll start. Thank you very much for your time today. I think we start by saying welcome to everyone, all our investors or potential investors, with this Super Flip presentation today. I just want to also welcome Paul van Niekerk, who will also be joining in or participating in the presentation itself. Thank you, Paul. And yeah, I think the starting point is a good investor do good investments, or excellent investments. It's actually better than just the good ones. And I think it's important to start investing in yourself and what you are currently doing. So yeah, great start. So we're going to jump in and proceed immediately with the presentation. With just a quick few house rules. Let's use the chat box on the top of your screen to share if you have any questions, so that we can just share it. Everybody can participate. And what we will do is we'll give everybody a chance to participate in any questions or so forth after each session, just to keep the focus there, and due to that time constraint. And then afterwards, we'll give you another opportunity to participate. Great. Yeah, so just a quick touch on who and what Wealth Assist is and what we do. We are obviously a real estate investment advisory, which is slightly different than what you may be used to. We don't sell information or that type of thing, basically focusing and making sure that any person who is credit-worthy, cash-rich or credit-rich and time-poor can utilize what we do and opportunities that we vet upfront. So those type of opportunities is basically transactions with predetermined contractual returns, which makes it different than the normal. And secondly, it's on the shelf, pre-vetted, risk mitigated. So each transaction that we do get verified prior to you getting involved. And if you go on our website, you will also see, if you go onto specific transactions and you're registered with us or accredited with us, then you will be able to go through those investments, actually see the valuations, etc. So the homework is basically made available for you to just go and verify and see if that is what you want to invest in. I think our 100 years plus of experience of our risk committee members also enable you to make it easier for you to spare you all the time and all those type of things, to make sure that those knowledge that's already been built up over the years is portrayed and brought forward so that you can get advantage of that. Then we also offer compounded returns, which is more described on the website. So when you go onto the website, there's the website address. If you're already registered with us, do yourself a favor, go through the current investments that videos that we've got there, or webinar information that's there about the specific products, how it works, what it does. Yeah, and thank you for that. Okay, what is a super flip compared to your current flip that you're used to in the market? I don't know who of you are participating in flips and those type of things. So the first difference is obviously a super flip is basically a transaction which is already sold, whilst a normal flip is something which you will purchase with a purpose to sell on at a specific price and with certain expected returns. Then secondly, when you purchase a flip, obviously a normal buy to sell transaction, in your case, all the suspensive conditions still need to be met either by you and on the on sale if you still have to sell it on. So there's nothing that's necessarily already settled, and you don't know upfront what those profits, etc., are going to be. Obviously, you anticipate certain profits, but as I always joke about it and say those are not the ones that you talk about around the campfire when you actually have lost one or two amounts on those type of things. Yeah. So and then limited time for quotations. We know if it's auctions, those type of things, we don't always have the access prior to those doing those transactions to actually get official quotations. But like, for instance, in this such a scenario that we are doing here today, our specialists have already verified the construction cost. Wasn't it quoted too low? Can it be executed? All those type of things. Is the prices that the properties are going to be sold at the right prices? Are that verified? All those type of things are looked into upfront before we get involved in any of these transactions. And yeah, so then very important, guarantees and undertakings are issued up front. So because the property is already sold, that means that there is the purchase price and the suspensive conditions is obviously already completed. It means that that transaction can be guarantees can be issued or undertakings from the conveyancing attorneys for payment of those amounts. Obviously, very important is that that money need to be controlled by the conveyancer or the deposit holding attorney in our case, which we will talk about a bit later as well. So those things are there. You know upfront what that profits will be, and there are obviously no guarantees upfront until the property is sold and suspensive conditions executed in a normal flip transaction. Then I will call it hopeful assumed returns. And we always talk about it. How do you actually, when you do that transaction, how do you determine value? And in our case, for instance, we do every single transaction that we do is pre-valued by professional valuers, which is actually on the bank panels and those type of things as well. So I think that's very important. And in the case where you may use a specific estate agent or whatever, you may get your valuations wrong, and we see it often happening. In that case, then you don't have that predetermined returns which we secure contractually prior to you entering into an agreement. Any questions to this stage? Up to this stage, guys? Okay, I'll just check the chat box on the side if there's anything. All right.
Nothing yet.
Nothing. So we'll continue. Thank you so much. Then the purpose of this joint venture specifically, because it's all differ from various transactions that we do. We have super flips where the property is already sold, which is just a single residential. In this case, it's a small development transaction where there's 6 units in total. And in this case, the specific purpose is that the developer wants to make sure that he gets certain monies. It's a contract with a landowner, a land availability contract, as they call it. That means the landowner have actually provided the land to him to take transfer of the land prior on giving transfer so that he can give transfer to the purchasers who purchase those units. And part of that is, first of all, to pay the landowner of this specific investments is to pay the landowner part of that purchase price, 400,000 in actual fact of it, then and construct and complete the internal services to enable transfer to take place. So the additional amount is because it's in an existing area, as you can see in Oak Glen in Bellville, Cape Town, which is hot property at the moment. Because of that, There's no external services that still have to be done. It's just the internal services for the 6 units. And then pay the initial construction cost till the first draws will be done. So these units are all sold to private purchasers. Those private purchasers either use a mortgage bond to do their building contract and pay for the land as well as the contract, or it's paid in cash. Like, for instance, 2 of the 4 are already sold, and those the one of them is a cash purchase. That means the full purchase price is paid into trust in the deposit holding attorney's trust account, which will be available on transfer a certain amount, and the rest for the building draws, which our professional team will certify. Then pay the cost to facilitate these transactions, obviously all the costs related to that. And then I think the very important question, why does a developer like this not go to the bank? Very simple. The banks are not, well, first of all current funding for developments is quite a huge challenge. Most of the banks are really expecting 120% pre-sales, those type of things. Those of you in the market will know what we're talking about. It's not an easy thing, but in our case, this specific 6 units is quite small, and therefore there's not a lot of money required for it. And then the banks don't want to go into those kind of smaller investment, smaller funding projects, and obviously the whole cumbersome challenge to pre-sell properties, which in this case the client doesn't want to sell all the units. He want to keep 2 units for himself after the development. Right, what is our minimum requirements for the release of funding for the development to start? Before we will pay any funding to any party, whatever, we make sure that the 4 of the 6 units need to be sold. In that case, it's a value of about 9 million rand. The units are selling at 2,250,000 average, and obviously 2 of them are already sold, and that means we've secured already 4.5 million of that security in the transaction. Yeah, and then a joint venture sale. How do you participate? You can either participate by investing in the specific unit yourself for 308,000. Very important. This is cash only, so you can't use a mortgage in this case. So in this case, you can only use cash, and you can either do it by, we don't want to allow too many people on one transaction. The maximum is 2. That means you can participate by either investing an amount of 154,117 or 308,000 on that. If you further look into the detail of this transaction, you'll see that the exposure to market value on each unit is not more than 38% of that, which gives you lots of room and security to make sure that you can make excellent returns, but the security is good. How is it your profits made up? This is very important part of it. If you look at the terms at the top line, the profit summary per unit for every 308,000 rand will either be a fixed amount of 35,000 if the transaction, for argument's sake, is completed and transferred. And that's why I want to work on the individual units, because if your unit is already sold where you participate in, and transfer takes place, let's call it in January, then in that case, if he completed it within 2 months or 3 months thereafter for that specific unit, then obviously your returns will come out in argument's sake 5 months or less than 6 months. Then that amount gives you then on the end of the day that 35,447. If it goes over the 6 months but less than 9 months, then the profit is fixed for 49,000. And if it goes over 9 months, it's fixed for that up to 12 months. and the maximum tenor is obviously 12 months. Then there's the cost to the transaction, which is payable by you additionally as the external buyer fee towards Wealth Assist. That returns will then be, actually, if you take the cost in consideration, give you a return of 17.7. If it's at 12 months, 19.2 and 20.7%. Great thing is that it's predetermined and you know upfront what you're going to get within what period of term. Great. Then the deployment of funds is very important. How does the deployment of funds work? Just to make sure that you understand the security during the term of this transaction. First of all, when you sign your joint venture agreement, it's the first part of it. So you indicate that you're interested. We proceed drawing up the joint venture agreement with a specific developer. In that case, that agreement is signed by the developer. After that has been done by you, the money is paid into the investors, into the deposit holding attorney's trust account. And very important, from here on, that money flows always through the various attorney's trust accounts. Now, I know some of us believe that, but we can't trust attorneys. Just for that case, we also are ensuring that all attorneys that participate has obviously got what we call Fidelity Fund insurance. So even if you run away with the money, don't worry, you are covered by the Fidelity Fund insurance as well. Then the deposit holding attorney will transfer that specific money to a transaction matter. That means if your IRF number is ending with 67 that you invested in, it goes into that matter statement specifically. From there on, the payment is basically from there on transferred, and the deposit is paid to the landowner from all the various transactions, which is 6 of them in total. And then from there on, the developer will be paid the draws for the initial internal services that have to be done from the attorney's trust account, so that is all on record and certified before payments by our professional team. Then the purchasers pay. So all those guys that have now paid that bought that unit, they either paid by cash or by mortgage, and that on transfer, that specific amount goes into the attorney's trust account as per normal conveyancing procedures. The balance that is available then will be made available then to do the initial construction, from where the conveyancing attorneys will make the various payments for the draws, etc. From there, after we certified the quality and obviously the draws as it goes along, and then the deposit holding attorney make the payments to any third parties like agent commission, all those type of things, and obviously the payment towards you as the investor on the end of the day directly into your account. So all the monies are flowing through, as I said, the attorney's trust accounts, and from there into your account. Then all payments by investments, we just run through that point, so I'm not going to repeat that. There's what is the additional security as an undertaking, and which is as soon as that transactions guarantees are issued, then that guarantees are that undertakings are replaced by that undertaking is replaced by a guarantee for you, payable from all the draws and on date of registration, which I will run through and explain to you exactly how that works. The undertaking will be against all proceeds from the sale of the Irvin, as well as the construction draws and all profits payable to the developer on the end of the day. Further security as a cession of those draws and proceeds. And we'll see now what is a typical pro forma statement for each of those transactions, so that you can understand it well. and then the real estate assist approved professional service team have oversight of the development as well as the certification of all payments as well to protect you in the process. And the progress draws, very important, are seeded. So all those progress draws are going into the attorney's trust account from where they will be allocated in a specific manner, which we'll see now in the next slides, on the exit strategy, how that will take place. Obviously, personal stewardship by the developer, as well as a waiver of builder's lien. Basically, what it means is that all draws to and payable to suppliers, etc., is covered only after you, as the real estate investor, have received your funds, etc. Then there's obviously the 2 units which is unencumbered, which we made part of our term sheet, is that we made sure that those units can actually be sold on, should we not be comfortable that everybody is paid. Exit strategy, very important. So the process is like this: when the earth is registered, because it's a land. So if you're a purchaser, a third-party purchaser has purchased this property, he buys the plot and he signs a building agreement. Okay. When that plot is registered, there's an initial amount that is paid back to the investor into the attorney's trust account, which will be reused to give the developer that initial construction cost to build up till the first draws. And then as and when those draws come in, very important, 47% of those draws will be held back by the attorney for the purposes of specifically paying the real estate investor first, and then obviously our profits and fees related to the assist group. So a typical example of an average transaction, the sale prices of those units is 2,250,000 average. The plots are sold for 850,000. The building contract is for 1.4 million, which gives you the total of the 2.25. Then out of the sale of that property, 478,000 goes to the landowner. The transfer fees, the attorneys of the initial transfer from the land to the developer, the agent's commission per transaction, and as I said, the initial 220,000 that comes back to you indirectly and then be reallocated for that initial construction phase, will give you the 850, how that is divided on date of transfer. So when the plot is transferred, that's the money and how it flows. Then the balance that will be available is 1.4 million, of which the balance of the estate agent's commission on the building contract is paid. The investor capital is then paid after that, as well as the investor's profit and returns, as well as our admin fees. Then the landowner will get an additional amount, and on the end of the day, the available construction costs, together with that 220 at the top, is to complete the unit, which gives you a total of what we see here. The developer's track record, obviously, as we spoke about the risk mitigation earlier, is obviously done and checked out. And these are just some of the developments that they have done and completed, just to illustrate that they are quite active and know what they're doing, and that they can complete this development of only 6 units. Our team, basically, we'll send you this so you can go take your time to go through this. The attorneys is PGI, Peter Goosen Incorporated. Lots of experience in development specifically, which is a very strong ally of us and working together. And he's also the deposit holding attorney in the transaction. Then we have our team, Paul as well as Kim, with got lots of experience in this specific lines. which you can go through. And Henny, our project and maintenance manager, national project and maintenance manager, to actually will review the certifications and all those type of things, and making sure that these things can be executed and are executed and the quality is correct before payments take place. Right, then we have location. I don't know who of you know where Oak Glen in Bellville is, but we know the Cape is hot. It is very close to a lot of, and I'll illustrate it quickly on the next slide, close to a lot of amenities. We've got Tiger Valley there on the left-hand corner, Tiger Valley Center. We've got the highways, the R300 flowing past here as well. Most of the main roads are very close vicinity to this. Accessibility to this specific property is very well, and it's very well positioned, and the location is obviously a very high demand. Then this is a site plan of the 6 units. So it's basically an existing. If I go back to the previous slide, then you will see that specific transaction is all this is already built up. Okay, so it's very clear that where that is situated is literally an open piece of land in between all the existing houses that's there, and a very popular area, as I said. Okay, that gives you a layout which is approved. All the rezoning is done. All those type of things are completed. It's literally services, transfer, building, and completion. Okay, just gives you an idea of the type of units. Not that you really should be concerned about that, because your unit is your security and you're only an exposure of 38%, but our valuations all came in at that prices of 2.25 and higher. Yes, and then I think before we touch on this slide, any specific questions? Paul, is there anything that you want to add while we're waiting for any questions?
No, Don, I think you're going to touch on it now. There was no questions in the chat room, but maybe just the process, how quickly they can go from here, if those who are interested to get involved in this opportunity.
I will explain that while you guys are thinking if there's any questions. So basically, the idea is to go onto Wealth Assist, make sure that you are registered and accredited. That means you need to actually put up your FICA, your proof of address, your ID, those type of things. And as soon as that is done, you will have access to the specific units, and you can actually reserve that unit. Maybe I can quickly switch to, or let me rather do that afterwards and just quickly show you. Otana, can you maybe help us there and just illustrate, typically if they go onto the site, how they can reserve, that they can just get an idea of how it will work, but it's actually very simple. And see if Tana can show us quickly. And then at the same time, you can either call Gerard, the cell number is on there, as you can see, as well as his email address, and you can just be in contact with him and make sure that that you tell him that you're interested in a specific. There's only 6 units, as you've seen, so 1 is already reserved, and then we have the balance that's still available. Any questions, guys? We will also send to all the attendants. We will send through the current recording of this, and then you can just maybe review that, be in touch with Gerard or myself, that type of thing, and then we can take it from there. Okay, Tana says that she's not able to load it from here, so we will, if you don't mind, just go onto the current website, www.wealthassist.co.za, and then you can take it from there, or send a mail to invest@wealthassist.co.za. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that. Anybody is welcome to ask further questions. I have to jump onto another meeting as well. And we appreciate your time, and I trust that you've enjoyed it and understood what we are presenting. Thank you so much, and have a super blessed day.